And we are live, ladies and gentlemen. We are live. Welcome to Benchley Night. This is your friend Charlie Hutter wearing his excellent Elbows Up Canada t-shirt that he wore yesterday at the Hands Off rally in Bellows Falls, Vermont. Now, this is hoping all of you were out there on the streets yesterday, the mean streets of America, because apparently there were over 1,500 different hands-off events, and there were 0 arrests. There were 0 incidents. Now, our good friends who are occupying the White House apparently have said that these were all paid protesters. That we all received $1,000 from George Soros, which is very interesting because the only people I know who are paying people to do things was Elon Musk in Wisconsin last week, which didn't work out so well for him. So anyway, it's a joy to have you here. I hope you've all warmed up from having been outside. It was kind of cold and rainy in beautiful Bellows Falls, but we had like 150 people, and we weren't even on our Indivisible website. This was an organic get together. Now Betty Sue is hi, Betty Sue. I'm hopefully going to get to see Betty Sue next month. Hopefully she's going to come up to Vermont for like a week, and we will hang out, and she'll get to play with the sewing machines, and I'll make her delicious food. But Betty Sue was completely perplexed by the fact that there were 7,000 people who came to Montpelier, Vermont, and she looked it up, and Montpelier, Vermont has a population of 8,000. But that's like the village of Montpelier. You know, it's Metro Montpelier. It's got to be 25 or 30,000 people, but still, that ain't hay. That ain't hay, ladies and gentlemen. So keep fighting the good fight. Enough politics. Enough politics. Let's get right to tonight's reading. It's very important, especially after a cold and rainy day out on the mean streets of Bellows Falls, Vermont, where cold, rain, wind. You don't want to catch a cold, ladies and gentlemen. You don't want to catch a cold. So Mr. Benchley has advice for us. How to avoid colds. The prevalence of the common cold, or also known as the housefly, at this time of year makes it advisable for everyone who possibly can to formulate a set of 10 rules for their avoidance. At the end of the open season, the best set of 10 rules will be embroidered on a handkerchief and presented to their author to use for his own cold. Here, as nearly as I can remember them, are my 10 rules for avoiding the common head cold. 1, do not breathe through your mouth or through your nose. These 2 orifices have been called the twin roads to Germville. And on a busy day, present a picture to the microscope similar to that of the Boston Turnpike. So long as people use their mouths and their noses to breathe through, we are going to have epidemics, plagues, and the eventual disintegration of the human race. Your surgeon will be glad to fit you up with a small tube which can be inserted into the throat and worked with a nickel hand pump. This will supply you with all the air you need for an ordinary day's breathing. Most of us get too much air anyway. Ordinary breathing air has been called nature's exhaust, and the less we load ourselves up with that, the better. 2, avoid crowds. This applies to all times of year, You never know who may be in a crowd, and mingling with one may result in your being reminded of an old $50 loan or a promise to drop in and hear somebody sing. Even if no one in the crowd has a cold, there's always someone who wants to push or to romp, and you are pretty sure to have your hat knocked off. A good way to avoid crowds is to stay right in your room all day with the door locked. 3, get plenty of sleep. When people come to awaken you in the morning, pull the covers up over your head and say, "Go away, I am avoiding a cold." When you have guests who hang around after midnight, excuse yourself politely by saying, "Now I will go in and get my preventative sleep. This is the season for colds, you know." There's a picture here. There's a picture here of the host saying, "Excuse yourself politely." And he's saying he's going to go get his preventative sleep. Good tip. If during the afternoon you feel drowsy at your work, just put your head over on your desk and take a little nap. Your boss will understand if you put a little sign up by your elbow reading, "Person asleep here, cold prevention." 4, change heads frequently during the day. Have an extra supply of heads in your room or in a large bag if you travel about. And when you feel one stuffing up, just take it off and put on a fresh one. 5, stay in a temperature between 60 and 70 degrees. This can be done easily by jumping on board a train for Palm Beach and lying on the sun for a month or so, lying on the sand for a month or so. Be sure, however, to lie face up with the arms outstretched so that the sun can send its actinic rays across your chest and into your eyes. This is the hardest part of the rule to follow. The temperature of the gambling rooms, however, will be just about right in the evening, so you will not have to lie on your back there. 6, don't dose up with patent medicines and nostrums. A sitz bath of rock and rye twice a day, using ordinary care not to bruise yourself on the rock candy, ought to be all the medicinal treatment that you will need. 7, eat a balanced diet. No proteins, no starches, no carbohydrates. Just a good steak with lyonnaise potatoes. Just a good steak with lyonnaise potatoes and asparagus now and then during the day. Remember the old adage, stuff a cold and stuff a fever. 8, no exercise. This is all important. Exercise just stirs up the poisons in your system and makes you a hotbed of disease. Sit or lie as still as possible and smoke constantly. If you can stand it, have somebody read aloud to you. If you cannot stand it, just scream, "Stop that reading aloud." 9, if you think that you have caught a cold, call in a good doctor. Call in 3 good doctors and play bridge. 10, and above all, don't catch cold. All right, ladies. Oh, it's only 7:54 p.m. Only 7:54 p.m. We're barely getting going, ladies and gentlemen. We better have one more, don't you think? I think so. Anyway, Charbonneau hasn't come home yet. So Charbonneau, come home. Yorkie's home, but Charbonneau's not home. Shall we have another? Yeah. How to kill time. A tantalizing item appeared in the news columns a few weeks ago. It stated that an organization called the Leisure League of America had listed 700 ways of killing spare time, aside from, quote unquote, just plain frittering, end quote. Then it did not say what they were. It didn't even say what plain frittering was. How can you tell when you're frittering? A Senate chamber full of busy statesmen can do a lot more frittering than a man with his feet on a rail and a straw in his mouth. I can fritter away an hour and then have to lie down and rest. Just because you're moving is no sign at all that you are not frittering. But what about these 700 other ways to kill spare time? The Leisure League of America says it is going to get out pamphlets about them. But where are they? One of them is announced to be about, quote unquote, hooked rugs, which I suppose means that you can hook rugs in your spare time. Personally, I'd rather fritter than hook rugs, and I'm sure the rugs would rather I did too. In case I don't hear from the Leisure League of America before the end of the week, I am going to make up my own list of ways to kill spare time, because I can see a lot of spare time ahead for me, and I do not want to get caught short. It would be awful to have a lot of spare time on your hands and no way to kill it. Suppose you just ended up having to hook a rug. Here's a tentative list, which will need some going over and revision after I have talked to the authorities. There are certain additional things that I would like to do, but I'm not quite sure what the city ordinances are on that particular subject. 1, stringing wire paper clips together to make a chain hundreds and hundreds of feet long. The longer the chain, the less leisure time you have to kill. 2, tooting an automobile horn in a stalled car. 3, upsetting bookcases and then putting the books back in again, with each book opened at page 27. 4, upsetting the bookcase again and putting the books back in, this time opened at page 45. 5, running just as fast as you can to the end of the room and back. 6, making tiny, as Rachel Maddow would say, teeny tiny tinfoil balls, 1/8 of an inch in diameter, and snapping them at everyone you see who is over 80. You'll have to make a lot of inquiries on this one, because there are a lot of people who do not look their age. 7, rowing in a rowboat without using the oarlocks. 8, fishing without bait. 9, walking up and down the aisles of a train, scanning each passenger's face and asking them in a whisper if they can tell you the lucky number. Here's the picture. Here's the picture of that. Mr. Benchley is walking the aisles of the train, and that woman is pretty shocked that he's asking her what the lucky number is. 10, getting into an old sleigh stored in the top of a barn and singing jingle bells and calling out, "Giddy up!" 11, fall. 11, 11, following 11, following fish up and down their tank in the aquarium to drive them crazy. 12, breaking up saltine crackers. 13, driving nails just as hard as you can into a board and then pulling them right back out again. 14. Counting your fingers, omitting every second one. By this time, maybe the Leisure League of America will have issued its pamphlets, and you can get down to work. All right, ladies and gentlemen, all right. We will see you next week. We're still here. We're here for a good long time. We're here for the whole month of April, so Benchley Nights will be continuing. And I am in the middle of transferring the list of everyone who is a supporter of my Substack into a spreadsheet so I can not have to write their names out because it takes a long time. But shall we go through the names? The unidentified unglet is ready. If you've got other things to do now is the time to go do them. But if you are a supporter of my Substack, hang on. You're probably going to get to hear your name mentioned if that's any use. Let's see what people say. Oh, Martha Rowley says the wandering cat Nat Hunter, my very tall cousin, said good evening. Catherine Fisher says hello. Terry Hudson says thank you. Excellent, excellent. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's go do it. This is going to be as fast as possible. A lot of shout outs to go through because we've got a lot of supporters. And remember, every penny raised in my Substack goes to one or another charity's blows against the empire, ladies and gentlemen. Blows against the empire. All right, you ready? Mary Graham. Uh-oh. Oh, not working. Having to go to alternate unidentified unglet in a can. Ready? Mary Graham. Magic Starheart. Cece Danforth. Kay McDonough. Melinda Weingartner. Peggy Weed. Jane S. Morgan. Dexelrad. Wing and Wing. MP Schmid. Linda Marquez. Catherine Fisher. Susan McNeil. Sonia Jackson. Christina Stockman. Terry Widener. Bree Dodson. Elizabeth Swartz. Lizzie Grosso. Adele Reichert. Christy Marks. Kate Fry. John T. Wilhelm out there in Omaha, Nebraska, where he keeps bright eyes in check, I'm sure. Deborah Lovett. Gene Fry. James Gilbreth down there in Texas painting up a storm. Marlon Gibson. Ann S. Cousins. Carol Burning. Helen Siksek fighting the good fight. MJ Brush. Nancy Radzik. Cindy Baker. Nancy Bass. Rhea Bruns. Jeb Hart. Jeb Hart, ladies and gentlemen. Jeb Hart. Harry Chapin's half-brother. Former manager of the Jay Giles Band. All-around good man. I met him when he used to work for Arista Records. And he would drive around the United States with Arista Records expense account and purchase postage at small town post offices to make sure those small town post offices did not lose those small towns did not lose their post offices. A good man, ladies and gentlemen, a good man. We should all be like Jeb Hart. Jeb Hart. Busy Graham. I feel like I said Busy Graham already, but maybe I didn't. See, it'll be better soon when I have this whole thing written out. All right. Nancy Flanagan. Susan McCullough. Kathleen Bartlett. Sharon Allen. Sandy, like the beach. Daniel. Scott Jones. Trying to teach economic sense to Trumpers everywhere. Good luck, Scott Jones. Good luck. Susan Dalton. Jimmy Malley. Nancy Teagarden-Wagnick. David Erlanger. David Erlanger. I went to prep school with David Erlanger, and what I really remember about David Erlanger, even though he's gone on to have a very successful life, what I remember about him is hearing the sound of his feet shuffling across the art building's floor. He did not lift his feet when he walked, ladies and gentlemen. He shuffled. David Erlanger, I already gave him the shout out. Mike Steele, Bob Manning, Don Anderson, Lincoln Payne, Sue Kibbe, Martha Rowley, Laura Brown, and out there in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where the opening day is come and gone, I have not figured out how to listen to the Pirates on internet radio. I don't know if you can. Ladies and gentlemen. But I know he is out there in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My very, very, very tall cousin, Mr. Nat Hunter, his wonderful wife, Elise, and their wee little dog, Ginger. Thank you all. Take good care. Keep fighting the power. See you next week. Bye-bye.